Relentlessly and continuously. You have to seek every opportunity, make use of it, exploit it, every medium, every possible way in which you can communicate the big ideas as effectively as possible throughout the breadth and depth of the organization, but also to our partners, our Iraqi and obviously coalition partners, and indeed to the greater audiences out there, certainly to our chain of command, our bosses in the USN coalition chain, and indeed to the people of our nations, the citizens of the United States and the other coalition countries. All of these had to be audiences. Each of them needed to be provided what it was that we were trying to do. We needed to explain that. We had an obligation to do that. I think they even had an obligation to get to know a little bit about the individual who was commanding their sons and daughters, who was taking this important effort forward together with Ambassador Crocker and all the other members of the team. And indeed, we then owed them an objective, a frank, a realistic assessment, a forthright assessment of the situation on the ground, how we thought it was going, what we planned to do in the future in a general sense, and what we thought we could and could not achieve. We let them have access to me. We took them out with us. It wasn't quite like having someone embedded with you the way I had say, historian Rick Atkinson riding in my own Humvee in the fight to Baghdad. But we'd take them out for a whole day. We'd, again, do interviews with them. We would spend time with them. I'd have the strategic communications chief would do formal on-the-record briefings, background briefings. Again, you had to invest a great deal in this, but above all, you had to be forthright in what you were conveying. And we had a guiding mantra in this regard, and it was to be first with the truth. In other words, to beat the bad guys to the headline if we could, knowing that some of them had CNN's Baghdad bureau speed dialed into their cell phones and would be communicating even as we were pulling out of an operation, say in Sadr City or somewhere else. But to be first with the truth, so that you beat them and you convey reality. Again, you can't put lipstick on pigs. If it's a bad day, you or the spokesman has to step up to the microphone and say, we had a horrible day today. 150 people were killed in bombings in 2 markets in Baghdad, events that did take place on a single day. And this is horrific, barbaric. Here's what we have taken from this, and we, our Iraqi partners, are going to take steps to mitigate the risks of something like this happening in the future. But you can't come out to the microphone and on a day like that and lead off with talking about, well, we reopened 3 schools and the hospital's working again and the water treatment plant is coming online. You've got to step up and acknowledge reality. And reality on many days in Baghdad, at least until the 4 or 5 month mark, and throughout the country, was pretty gruesome and quite difficult indeed. Look, I realized very early on in the surge in Iraq that I'd become the face of the surge. It wasn't necessarily something that I sought, but in truth, it wasn't something with which I was uncomfortable. I realized, again, I thought this is my last assignment in life, and sometimes I acted that way, and it had a liberating quality to it. And I had a president that was fully supportive and was not going to question if I was on the cover of Newsweek or Time or something like that. He just wanted to win. And I felt totally committed to this effort, and therefore I had to communicate to the press. I had to be very open to them. I had to be candid, forthright. I had to maintain credibility, but I also had to maintain lines of communication. And in turn, I expected, and we made sure the press knew that we expected them to try to be as accurate as they could in every story that they filed or filmed, that they would provide the right context and that they would characterize the situation correctly. These are very, very important. I mean, the context matters. If one of our troopers shot through the window of a speeding Iraqi car, it mattered greatly if it was in the middle of the night in a driving rainstorm in the toughest place in Baghdad where 3 car bombs had already gone off that night and another was reported to be on the way toward that checkpoint, as opposed to, say, in the far south where there hadn't been a car bomb in 6 months, it's in broad daylight, and there was no reason more likely to pull the trigger. So that mattered. And again, how a story is characterized, how you can't extrapolate from one company's experience to say that the overall mission is improbable or impossible. So we worked on meeting our responsibility to the press, which is a recognition that you can't win if you don't play. By the way, you can't lose if you don't play either. And I had some losing episodes with the press as well. I got bruised and banged and scuffed up quite a bit. But you dust yourself off, try to figure out what you learned from it, and drive on. I mean, life has adversity. Life has setbacks as well as successes. And the truth is that the mark of the individual is generally more how he or she responds to setbacks, especially if they've been personally inflicted, frankly, than how he or she responds to successes. That's pretty easy. So dealing with the press was an inescapable element of command in Iraq in particular. I'm not saying it wasn't also hugely important in Afghanistan, but I don't think I was the face of Afghanistan in the same way that I was the face of the surge in Iraq.